In this video, you will get a free positional masterclass from Bobby Fischer. We are going to have a look at a game he played in the Olympiad in Havana, in Cuba in 1966. It's a very interesting game. Bobby Fischer playing with the white pieces against Joaquim Durao, if I pronounce correctly, from Portugal. And it's a very instructive game. I will not talk too much about it. I just ask you to subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. And then we will see how it exactly went in this game. Bobby Fischer opens with one e4. We have the French defense and his favorite response d3. Not going for the main lines with the move d4. Not occupying the center, avoiding a lot of theory. Just getting a game. Black goes for c5. So this could also be reached via the Sicilian move order. Knight f3, knight c6, g3, g6. Bishop g2, bishop g7, castling kingside, and black places the knight on e7. All pretty standard, I would say. White goes for the move c3. And after castling, he decides to go for the move d4 anyway. So anyway, white is getting two nice pawns in the center. And the question is, how is black going to deal with that? Well, normally in the Sicilian, whenever a pawn is on d4, you are going to take it. But it was not played in the game. I think it's something black should have done here. After white recaptures with a c-pawn, black should strike back in the center. That's a normal way of playing. If you do take, you can take with a knight or even take back with a pawn. So normally white will advance the pawn to e5, trying to box in this bishop on g7. But with a move like f6, in the spirit of the French opening, you're challenging the head of the pawn chain, the pawn on e5. If that pawn is gone, then at least you can get some nice squares for your pieces. There is definitely some dynamical play here for black. I think that's the way to go, but Durao played differently. He didn't capture on d4, but instead played here the move d6. So now white still has these pawns. He can decide what he's going to do now. He may maintain the tension, various ways of playing. But Fischer decides to take on c5, trading of the pawns, so we get a symmetrical structure with only one open file. That's likely where the action is going to take place. But white can go for the exchange of queens or keep them on the board. Fischer plays the move queen e2. Black played the move b6. And here white has to think about how to get these pieces into play. There are various moves. You can get the bishop out somewhere along this diagonal. You can also put a knight on a3. That's a typical way of getting the knight to a better square, maybe to c2 or maybe later to c4. A lot of ideas here, but they follow the move e5, which is interesting as you're trying to play against the bishop on g7. You do open the diagonal for the bishop on g2, but there are some drawbacks as well. Black played the move a5, so the plan is to get the bishop out to a6. It will be protected by the rook on a8, and the bishop hits the queen and the rook. White moves the queen away. Rook e1. The bishop goes to a6, attacks the queen, and the queen goes to e4. And now, of course, the big question is, how is black going to continue developing? At some point, the rooks, they likely want to come to the d file. But here the move rook a7 was played. So the rook goes via the 7th rank to d7, to the d file. Knight e2. White develops the knight first before moving the bishop. Bishop d3. Bishop comes in, hits the queen. Queen goes away. And you see that white is looking for some attacking chances. Maybe the knight comes to e4, the bishop can come out, maybe to g5 or h6. If you can get rid of that bishop on g7, then black's kingside will become more vulnerable. And therefore black played here the move knight d5, offering the exchange of queens, which is what Fischer did. He decided to take here. Queen takes the 8, rook takes the 8, and I think this is an important moment to take stock, because is white really better here after the queens have been exchanged? There are no longer any sort of realistic attacking chances, of course, but it's an interesting game. Anything can still happen, but how is white going to get these pieces into play? Of course, the bishop on d3 is a very annoying piece. You would like to get rid of it. But the only good way to get rid of that bishop is to play the move bishop f1. It was not played in the game. Fischer played a better move, but I will show you. If bishop f1 would have been played, there could follow bishop takes, king takes, for instance. And now black is going to expand on the queen side. Maybe b5 can be played, maybe a3 can be played. There's potential pressure against the pawn on c3. I think black is a bit better here. Therefore, the bishops are not going to be exchanged yet, but white prepares it with a very nice classy move, a4. First fixing these pawns on the queen side. Now after the move rook a d7, very logical move to get a rook into play, now the bishops are going to be exchanged. That's a good move. I should point out though that this was the moment where black should have looked for counterplay, and he could have achieved that by playing the move g5. The idea is to play the move g4 to attack the knight, remove the defender from the pawn on e5. If you take on g5, then it's knight takes e5 with a very complex position. Black is active, but okay, anything can still happen. Rook a d7 was played. Back to the game. Bishop f1. Now the bishops are coming off the board. And you see that black is missing its light squared bishop. Knight d e7 played. So the rooks are controlling the open file. You may think that black is just better because of that. But after knight c4, white is hitting the pawn on b6. The knight goes back to c8. And the bishop comes out to g5 with tempo. The bishop was waiting for this tempo move for a long time. So the rook is under threat. If you move the rook away, then white can even take over control of that file. And here you see that white is just better. Rook e8 was not played. Black dropped back with a knight from c6 to e7. And here another interesting moment, because white has completed its development. Finally, knight is doing very well on c4. Pawn on b6 is a liability, but what should be done next? Well, this knight on f3, it's not optimally placed yet, and Fischer improves that piece first. Played here the move knight fd2. So the knight is heading for the e4 square. Black plays h6, hits the bishop, bishop takes knight, and black takes back with the rook. Now the knight of course can come to e4, and we will soon the knight landing there. That's gonna happen. But look what other ideas white may have here. The pawn on b6 is a weakness. White played here this move, rook a3. The rook is planning to go to b3. Rook c7, rook b3, attacking the pawn for the second time. Black defends it from the side. And now, only now, the knight comes to e4. You see that black's pieces are really passive. The knight and the rook, they cannot move. There's nothing the rook can do on the d-file, and the bishop on g7 is also out of play. Bishop f8 played. White brings the king to the center. And black places the bishop on e7, saying that the bishop is doing more there, guarding the d6 square, so a white knight cannot easily land there. The bishop also covers the f6 square, but it's not clear what black is exactly going to do. White is grabbing space, improves the position further. f4, that's a good move. And what should black do? Well, that's not easy to say. You may play a move like h5, but after h5, I think h3 is going to be played, and very soon the move g4 will be played when white is trying to create some new play on that side of the board. Black went for the move king f8, but where's the king going? Is it better placed in the center than on the king side? I'm not sure. White goes for g4 now. Very nice move, so you try to create some pawn breaks at a suitable moment. Black brought the king to e8, continuing with that plan, and the rook goes to f1. So you see that there are now even plans to get in this move f5. And if everything is getting swapped, maybe the rook can come to f5. You're making progress, but the good news even for white is that you don't have to play f5 yet. You can just threaten to play that and see what black is going to do in return. Black played here this move, rook d5. So now, okay, the rook is trying to keep an eye on this pawn on e5, even though it's still protected by the knight. The rook is more actively placed there. But now Fischer comes with a very strong plan. He's not even planning to play the move f5, but he has discovered an additional possibility. By playing the move rook f3, he is introducing the threat of rook h3, and the pawn on h6 is unprotected. We are going to attack it. Rook d8, rook went back. Probably it's a sign that black had overlooked this possibility. Rook to h3, attacking the pawn. It has to be protected, otherwise it's just a pawn for free. Bishop goes back to f8. Pause the video here for a second, it's tactics time. A very unexpected tactical possibility is here, so it's very interesting to see if you can spot it. Da-da-da-da. Knight takes a5. That's a remarkable idea. What is happening here? If you just take the knight, then the knight comes in with check. The king has only one square to go. It's e7. Then it's rook b7 with check. You can only block it with a rook, but then the rook is taken and it's checkmate. So let's go back to understand what is happening. White has optimized its position on both sides of the board, putting pressure, tying down black's pieces. And you see that with the move knight takes a5, you're trying to activate the rook and the knight. And it's quite remarkable that you attack weak pawns, but at the same time you're even planning to deliver checkmate. Fascinating idea. You're even attacking the rook on c6, so since the knight cannot be taken, the rook had to go back. Now it's knight c4. Knight has done its job, has taken a pawn. Rook goes to a7, looking for counterplay. But now it's knight takes b6. That's just a good move. Taking another pawn. Knight takes, rook takes. There's no time to take this pawn on a4 because of knight f6. It's the same mating idea as we have seen before. Therefore, the pawn stays on the board. Black went for the move rook da8. Attacking the pawn one more time. But now after knight f6, check. King goes to d8. Probably the idea is to play here the move king c7. But very precise is this move, rook c6, preventing the king from attacking the rook. The rook covers the squares on the c-file, which means that taking the pawn is still not an option because of rook d3 check. Beautiful rook switch. Once again, king e7 runs into rook d7 with the same mate. So black, 2 pawns down, is in a hopeless situation. Played here the move rook c7, but that can be met by this move rook to d3. King c8, you have to solve the check. Now rook takes c7, another check. King takes back, rook d7, another check. Everything comes with tempo. King c6, and this rook takes f7. That's pawn number 3, and still no time to take the pawn on a4, as that would hang the bishop on f8. Black played c4, knight d7, attacking the bishop. Bishop goes to c5. It's like the only square the bishop can go to. But now white is aiming for more exchanges. That's a good plan. It's a rook endgame with 3 extra pawns. Let's see how quickly the game is going to end, because you give a check. Black played king d5. There is still a bit of hope here that black can take the pawn, maybe play king e4, and with a lot of activity you may compensate your minus pawns. But here, very cute final move of the game. It's the move b4. And the idea is that if you do take the pawn on a4, it's king e3 with checkmate coming on the next move, because the king, the black king, is caught in the middle of the board, rook c5. That's the idea of the move b4. Cannot be prevented. I mean, you should play rook a5, but then the rook can just be taken. Just go back one more move. After the move b4, you can of course take en passant. But in that case, the king will come to d3. And now all the remaining squares from the king have been taken away. c4 is the threat. If you take on a4, then c4 will be played with check. You have to give up the rook. Rook takes, your rook up, and the b pawn is not dangerous at all, because the rook will come to b4 and wrap up the pawn on the next move. I thought this was a very nice game. Positional masterclass from the famous Bobby Fischer. Let me know what you think of this game. Is this your favorite game of Bobby, or do you prefer other games? I can cover them all. So just let me know. Subscribe to the channel. Let's go. Let the channel grow. Thanks for helping. See you soon.